Oh man, this episode made me feel so good. I mean, she just gives the best career advice. And her story is so cool. Pinkflawd started her journey in reverse engineering back in 2013, spending time reverse engineering malware, detecting it in the cloud, and becoming the founder of one of the best organizations for helping more women get into reverse engineering. That organization is called BlackHoodie, and I've actually attended some trainings there, and it was really, really fun. So if anyone out here who's a woman and wants to learn more about reverse engineering, please go visit blackhoodie.re. It's amazing. You have the opportunity to attend free trainings all around the world by amazing trainers in the reverse engineering scene. So go check it out. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode. It was such a good therapy moment for me. Hello!
Hi. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm doing good. I slept a long night. It's great. It's a beautiful morning over here. Couldn't be
It's
better.
your first day off of work now. You can chill.
Yeah, sweet, sweet freedom.
Sweet, sweet freedom. How long were you at AWS for?
I was there for 4 years. Prior to that, I was at Intel for 3.5 or so.
Wow.
And both of those jobs were really intense. And now I decided it's time to just take my money and go home. Like take a break and then see what else I can do that's not that stressful.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. You're working in the US, right? So you're kind of under the American work-life culture system, right?
Yeah, that. And somehow it feels like the last year and a half or two, everybody has gotten more and more busy. Like something happened and the pressure has mounted and people are unhappy.
Is it since the layoffs?
I think so. I think that had something to do with that.
I'm so happy that you're on this podcast. You're my first female tech engineer on here, and I'm very excited. And I feel like you like to also put women forward in this field, right? Because you're in charge of BlackHoodie, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure in charge is the right phrase. Like I founded it originally and developed its own life since, and that's awesome. Like it's not my organization anymore. It's everyone's organization.
So you founded BlackHoodie?
Yeah, I started that thing.
So I did a BlackHoodie in Hexacon in 2024, and it was so good. I really, really loved it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, last year, Hexagon, that's run by Caro. She's doing such a great job. Like she loves BlackHoodie and like started her own event and like she's doing it so much better than I ever could.
So when did you found BlackHoodie?
In 2015, it has been 10 years. Wow.
Are you just realizing it now?
Yeah, so COVID kind of really put the brakes on what we were doing, and like there was 2 years of nothing. Right, so it doesn't feel like we've been really going for 10 years, but that was 10 years ago. Yeah.
What made you want to make a BlackHoodie foundation?
It's a good question. It wasn't meant to be a foundation from the start. That kind of happened. But so like, I'm a reverse engineer, and I got into this field through a women-only competition that happened in 2013. So that's what that competition was. What motivated me to learn and to pick up that profession. And then, like 2 years later, I find myself at various conferences, and like women sneak up on me and they tell me like, "Hey, what you do is so cool. Like, how did you learn how to deal with binaries?" And I was like, "Wow, there's a steep learning curve," and like that gave me this idea of hosting a class and telling them, "Hey, come see me in Austria. That's where I'm from." And like university gave me a room, and I said, "Let's sit down for a weekend and look at binaries, and I'll show you how I got there." And that's how BlackHoodie was born.
That is so nice. So how did you get into it originally?
I was an analyst at an antivirus company, and you would think that reverse engineering is part of the job description, but in reality, we were managing signatures and we were managing samples, but we didn't spend much time analyzing. And then the reverse engineering competition was published. That was a reverse engineering competition for women. And my coworker sent me that, and he was chuckling, and I'm like, "Watch me." And I grabbed that binary and started. And yeah, I went through the competition. I won, but there wasn't much competition, as you can imagine. Like, there wasn't like hordes of women who were like, I need to win this. That needs to be put in a relative perspective of like, there wasn't a horde of women trying to win this, but that's also what taught me how to reverse engineer to begin with.
So you learned reverse engineering during or for the competition?
Yeah.
And you hadn't done reverse engineering before at the antivirus company.
That's the thing. Like, we weren't, when I started there, we weren't really analyzing. We managed samples like that came in from various shares. We put them in databases. We looked at their metadata. We managed signatures that were automatically generated. We didn't really look into the samples. Someone from Google named Thomas Dillian, he put a sample online for people to grab, and there was a deadline for when you needed to hand in a report. So it wasn't like I was going to that competition and working live on the sample. It was offline, if you will.
Okay, so you had a set number of days to analyze the sample and reverse engineer it and then upload a report. And that's how you won the competition. And that's how you learned as well than reverse engineering.
Correct, yeah. That's what happened.
Which architecture were you reversing at the time?
That was x86, Intel 32-bit.
Are you more focused on reversing Intel or like Windows architectures then?
I was back then, yeah. Like, the malware market wasn't really going anywhere other than Windows at the time. Like, that was the big market share for like antivirus products. But over the course of my career, like, I've switched. I'm now more focused on Linux. And yeah, ARM has certainly gotten bigger. Like, I suck at ARM reverse engineering, but that's a big share now as well. It's a very interesting field.
What do you reverse in Linux right now? Do you work on the kernel?
No, I would say barely. Malware. My most recent job dealt with malware detection in the cloud. And that's how I got to the Linux malware.
I don't hear much of malware detection in the cloud. How does that work?
So for malware detection, usually you have some form of scanner, something that looks at a file or a hard drive and tries to detect malicious items. Let's say items.
Like signatures?
Yeah, signatures. I mean, you can run signatures across a file. You can run them across the dump of a hard drive. You can run them across network traffic. You can collect runtime data and try to find malicious activity there. Different methods to do that.
Okay, and so in this job, you weren't doing much reverse engineering then. It was more focused on malware detection.
Well, so in order to create detections, we did have to reverse engineer the samples themselves as well.
Right. To log in specific library calls or map certain signatures to typical malware behavior.
Correct, yeah. So you'd analyze the piece to a point where you found portions of the code that were dedicatedly only used by that specific family, and that's where we would plant the signatures. Like, overall, I was working on cloud threat detection, which didn't only include detecting malware samples, but also malicious remote connections, general malicious activity when somebody breached a cloud account, and so on and so forth. So we had lots of different data sources to work with, and one of those was malicious samples.
But so I see that I was kind of looking at your LinkedIn profile. I saw that you also worked at Intel. What did you do over there? What was your day like? Can you talk about any projects that you worked on?
I think so. Let me see. So my time at Intel, my job title was microarchitectural offensive security researcher. That's what we would do. So I was part of a team that looked at incoming security reports and was verifying how impactful they were, like how many platforms were affected, etc. And that was very interesting work. There's a lot that I can't talk about there, but part of my job there was to test mitigations. Like, if people found vulnerabilities in the Intel platform, part of what I did was to test whether we could mitigate against those attacks. And that was just super interesting. Like, Intel working at Intel as a security engineer, you really get to go deep into the platform. That was what was so magical about that job.
Did you have like a good team to help you navigate the complexities of the job?
Yeah, indeed. Like the team was very well put together. Our senior engineer was great at picking the different skill sets that the team needed at the time. And it was nice to be there sort of at medium seniority level. So I had the opportunity to guide and mentor junior folks in the team. And I also had very skilled senior folk on the team that I could learn from. And that was a great spot to be in as an engineer. Like be able to teach and to learn.
What exactly is your background? Because you said that you were working first at an antivirus software company. Did you study computer sciences in university, or how did you land that job?
I went to University of Applied Sciences in Austria. So yeah, I studied computer science, but with a major focus on security. And prior to that, I went to an engineering school. So I think I have about 11 years of engineering education. It sounds like a lot. Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I was in school for a long time.
So prior to the competition that you won, how did you then learn reverse engineering at the time? Because you said it was 2013, and I don't remember a lot from 2013. I also wasn't very present in this field. Um, were there any resources online to teach you how to reverse, or did you kind of have to learn on your own?
How did that go? It was a long time ago. I grabbed that piece of malware that was hosted on the blog at the time. I put it in a disassembler. I was using IDA Pro and I loaded the file and I started staring. I did not know what I was doing. I was just trying to put pieces together, and then there was a lot of Googling. Yes, there's resources out there that explain things. So if I found an instruction I didn't understand, somebody had explained that. If I found like a system call that I didn't understand, yes, there's documentation. But it was still a lot of piecing things together. Like once you get started, it's a very steep learning curve to get to a level where you know where to find the answers to the questions you need to ask. Does that make sense? Like if you look at the stack of instructions and it just doesn't make sense, it's difficult to figure out where you need to start.
Yeah, I totally understand. Sometimes I find myself in a situation where I'm like, I don't understand what I don't understand. And so it's really hard to uh, ask for help or ask for answers for a specific task that I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Thank you. That explains. So like that was the idea behind BlackHoodie. Like if I sit down with someone for a day, I cannot teach anybody to reverse engineer. It's not a subject that you learn in a day because there's so much you need to know. But knowing where to get started, knowing how to approach the problem, and knowing where to look for answers once the questions are clear, that's really what helps people get a foot into that field. And from there, it is self-teachable, very much so.
Yeah, I mean, all of the people that I've been talking to in this field have learned by themselves. There is no bachelor degree in this. I think maybe today, but at the time, definitely not. Everyone learned on their own. Everyone learned by staring at the screen and trying to make sense of the instructions, or maybe asking for help on blog posts and collaborations. That's what I've got from all of the people I've spoken to in this industry.
Yeah, it sounds about right. There's a lot of staring for sure.
How do you manage to keep going and not give up after a while when it gets too hard? Did you have some sort of reward mindset?
I don't think. So reverse engineering to me feels like building a puzzle. And like once I start on the binary, I can't stop because I need to find out what else is going on in there. And it doesn't feel like a chore. Like it doesn't feel like this is something that I need a break from necessarily. There's something I learned with reverse engineering is what the word hyper focus means. That wasn't the concept I knew prior, but me and like lots of reverse engineers that I talked to about this as well. Like we have this ability to sit down and stay there until we figure it out. And on the way, we forget to eat, we forget to shower, we forget to, like live our lives until we solve the problem. And that's a weird headspace to be in, but it also is a superpower.
Oh, yeah, definitely. How do you manage social life when you're in hyper focus mode?
That's a good question. I think for a long time back in those days, my social life was on the internet. Like I'm on the computer chatting with people, and then I jump back into the binary. And it sounds sad, but it felt good at the time. These days, I have friends like in actual real life. It's been a long time since I spent day and night just to reverse engineer a sample. Now I come to think of it.
I feel like I've had this discussion with other people as well in the field. They used to do a lot of exploitation and exercises or just reading a blog post and trying to replicate the exploitation technique on their own. But since they've been working, that has taken so much of their time as well. They haven't done proper hacking or hobby hacking in a long time as well.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But I'm looking forward to do more hobby hacking now in the near future.
Well, you have a lot of time now. You haven't have you applied for another job already or
I have not. I haven't even been looking. I just really wanted to take some time off and focus on the things that are fun to do. Like I want to open a disassembler without a goal, without a timeline, and just have fun doing the work.
That sounds so fun. Are you gonna host a BlackHoodie event? Are you gonna train? Are you gonna be a trainer?
Yeah, yeah, this year for sure. We have multiple events on the calendar that are being worked on, that are being planned. I think the next one is in Austin in March during Zero Conference. That might be me teaching, and then I need to see what else is coming up. But this year is going to be busy.
Oh, that's fun. Then you have the opportunity to get back into what you really love as well. That's gonna be refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward. It's going to be a good year.
Do you usually train people in malware reversing?
Yeah, it depends. Like that's what I've been teaching for a long time. Like that's the easy one. This year I want to focus on teaching other topics as well. But so like preparing a training is a lot of work. That takes time. So the last couple of years I didn't have that time, and this year I hope to have more time and come up with more topics and more trainings.
I would love to assist one of your malware reverse engineering trainings one day if I have the opportunity to.
Oh, I know. I'd love to sit down with you one day and try to dig through a binary. I haven't been teaching BlackHoodie in Europe for a while, but now that I have time, I could travel back there. Yeah, it would be nice to meet you one day.
I mean, there's so many BlackHoodie events every year that I'll try to sign up to a next one again. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear. Like, it's a great that project has given me so much. Like, if you can't teach, you learn. You learn the subject you're teaching. You learn from your students. You learn to explain. You learn to be explained. You learn how to interact with people about that subject. It's like teaching classes itself is magical, and you meet so many really, really bright people. It's I hard time explaining, but there's something that I got back from BlackHoodie that's.
How did you start pulling people into the project? Did people reach out to you to help you organize it, or how did it grow into what it is today?
Yeah, essentially people came up and said they wanted to host these events where they're from. In the beginning, BlackHoodie wasn't meant to be like a series of training or a series of boot camps or an organization. It was supposed to be one class, and the year after the first, again had one reach out to me and ask me whether we could do that again. And I was like, okay, do it again. And then the same happened the third year, and then suddenly somebody said, like, I would like to host this at my university, and I would like to host this at my company. And I was like, okay, go ahead. Do you have a subject to teach? And they were like, yeah. And so that's how the first spin-offs were born.
Yeah, it's must feel so nice to see how much it's grown since then. Because when I went in Hexacon, it was full, full, full. There were a lot of attendees, and the trainers that were giving the trainings were really good. I I don't remember all of the names. I remember Zishka because I had met her the previous year, and also she's pretty popular in the iOS and Android reversing scene. So it was really fun to have a training by her as well. She was really good. But it seems like a lot of really good trainers are, well, they're giving the trainings, and it's grown into something pretty big now.
It has, and I love to hear that, and it's so awesome to watch. Like, I've done nothing to help that growth. In reality, that was other people taking the idea and taking it further. We had a lot of attendees over the year, and a good number of those has gone on to do amazing things. They're now on conference review boards, they're teaching commercial trainings, they're speaking at conferences, they're mentors, they're senior engineers, I used to have coworkers that came from BlackHoodie. I like to see that impact that those trainings have as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's really pushing more women in the industry as well because it's quite tight. But so coming back to more reverse engineering topics, you said you started reversing on IDA. Today, currently, what is your disassembler of choice? Because I know you worked on Radare. I saw that you made some contributions. You created a tool called R2 Graffiti.
Yeah, that was my hobby project. Radare is sort of what I grew up with. That was the first disassembler I've ever used, and I feel the most comfortable because I know the tool very intimately. I've worked a bit with Binary Ninja in the past, and I've heard since I first used it, it has come a long way. Like, it sounds like that is a very competitive tool compared to IDA Pro. And it was like competitive. Like, if you look at reverse engineering frameworks, what you want is for your disassembly to be correct. Like, the instructions you see, you want those to be the instructions that the binary was meant to execute. You want to see the data portions, like the strings and the structures, and the spot where they really are at and parsed correctly. You want the function boundaries in the binary to be recognized correctly. You want that function to be visualized correctly so you can look at the call graph and data flow graph in those binaries. Sorry, the function graph, not data flow, function graphs. And some tools are better at those. I keep calling them cosmetics. Like, some tools are better at that than others. And for a long time, IDA Pro was just the tool to go to because the disassembly quality was so good. But again, like today, we're looking at a landscape where we have IDA Pro, we have Radare 2, we have Binary Ninja, we have Gira, and nowadays there's a real choice in tools to use, and they all have their pros and their cons. Radare 2, at the time when I was using it, had this massive benefit that it was super easy to automate. Like, you could script the hell out of the tool and like get all the data through Python or a different programming language of your choice, and could work with that. The problem I had at the time, when was that? Like, it might be like 10 years ago now. There were a lot of bugs in Radare too. And if you talk to Pancake about it, he'll laugh. Like, I was using the tool and used an API, and then there was a software update coming out for Radare 2, and I used the same API again, and I didn't get the same data back. And I would chat Pancake on Telegram and tell him, hey, there's a problem in that API that I just used. And like 2 minutes later, there would be a bug fix. And he said, like, pull the repo again, build again. And I did that, and the bug was gone.
Instant customer support.
Oh, instant, yeah. That was hilarious. Like, I loved how that went, but you can imagine, like, if you build software on top of a tool that randomly keeps breaking and keeps getting fixed and it keeps breaking again, the thing you build on top of that tool is really volatile. And that was the problem at the time with R2. But like, again, the benefit of Radare was it was so versatile. Like, none of the other disassembly frameworks I know about have a scripting interface that is so flexible. Like in R2, you can script everything, and that's what I so loved about it.
What, because I'm not very proficient in reverse engineering yet. I'm manifesting it. What is so interesting about being able to script, or the versatility of being able to script?
You can get into automation really easily. So there's one thing to reverse engineer a sample manually by hand, and like going through the structures and going through the data types that you find and going through the functions and find the system calls and the APIs. That is time consuming, and you can imagine as an analyst, like if you look at, say, 10 samples, you don't want to be spending the next month reverse engineering. However, there is so much that can be automated in that field, like analysis tasks that can be done through scripting one of those frameworks that can help an analyst understand the sample much faster than if they go through manually. So that's what I was trying to do at the time. And it turns out that IDA Pro was really difficult to script. And again, we're talking 10 years ago, and a lot of that might have changed. But like at the time, scripting IDA Pro was just really hard. Binary Ninja wasn't really a thing yet. Ghidra wasn't really a thing yet. So the choice was really limited. And so working with Radare at the time was really, really nice. Because I could just write this Python script and the disassembler would do my bidding, as opposed to me like trying to manually dig my way through a sample.
And so today, what is your weapon of choice, let's say?
Yeah, I'm back on IDA Pro. IDA Pro has the best interface. It's the most beautiful graph and the most functional graph. And I think that's what really helps as an analyst to visually see what's in front of you.
I've done a bit of IDA Pro. I find it really confusing. I feel like it's not intuitive for a beginner as, for example, Binary Ninja or even Ghidra sometimes. I've worked more on Binary Ninja in the last couple months. And I like it a lot.
It is. I haven't worked with Binary Ninja in a long time. I would be curious to try again and see how far they've come. Disassembling binaries is very hard. Like there's so many variances in how a binary can look like, and the disassembler needs to be really good in knowing about all those differences. But also, there's this one thing about IDA Pro that is a real issue. It is super expensive.
Yeah, that's very true.
And they've done well in publishing a free version. It's just the free version is very limited, of course. And on the other hand, Binary Ninja has ramped up their prices as well.
But still way cheaper than IDA Pro, though. Isn't it like 300 euros a year, and IDA Pro is like 3K a year?
Yeah, it depends. I briefly looked at their licensing structure. They have like this personal license. So if you do reverse engineering for fun or for CTFs, then that license works for you. If you purchase the license for professional use, the price is a little over $1,000, if I remember right. Like it is up there. It's getting expensive as well. And then like it is still cheaper than IDA Pro, for sure. But then I'd like to know how the disassembly quality or the analysis quality works. And again, I haven't used it in a long time.
Some people I know that work in VR that aren't working on the iOS choose Binary Ninja because the iOS field seems to be mostly on IDA. But yeah, I do know a lot of people who work in VR who just use Binary Ninja these days. So I think it must be doing a lot better than when you tried it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I imagine that. That is interesting to know for sure.
Yeah, I do like their interface a lot. And what I really like with Binary Ninja is the high level, low level, mid level Python pseudocode, C pseudocode. I find that very helpful. And I'm not sure if IDA has that. I don't know IDA well enough, but I did appreciate that a lot with Binary Ninja. So you contributed to R2 and you wrote R2 Graffiti. How did this project come to life?
R2 Graffiti was my hobby project at the time. I noticed, like, if you look at a lot of malware samples one after another, you notice similarities. Like, you see that certain malware samples share the same code structures and the same strings and the same behaviors. I was trying to figure out whether I could run a quick script across those samples and see whether those similarities pop up, so that before I even open the sample and this is similar, I get this idea of what it is about. And so that's why I started out with the automated analysis project. Like Art2Graffiti was essentially me trying to extract call graphs, system calls, and strings and put them in a graph, and then look at those graphs and say, like, okay, these two samples, because these 20 samples all look very similar, but then there's these other 3 samples that look completely different. And then I would start with those 3 samples to analyze. And so in getting those graphs extracted from the binaries, I did think about visualizing them. I was like, it's a graph. Like, if we could put that in a graphic, like, you can really just look at it and visually would understand approximately what's the structure. You might see what the strings are and whether referenced. You might see which function calls are called where. And from there, just derive. This looks like it could be ransomware. This looks like it could be a denial of service bot. And that is totally possible and relatively easy. So that's how Art2Graffiti was born. Like, the graffiti is referencing that visualization aspect. And then I just found myself having so much fun visualizing stuff. Like, you can make really pretty graphs and like work with the colors and the sizes of things and like visualize the aspects that you deem interesting about that graph that you're looking at. Like, binaries are graphs inherently. If one function calls another function, you have 2 nodes and an edge in between. So that gives you the graph. And graphs just help humans understand structures better. So as opposed to looking at a stack of instructions in front of you, you look at this graph and like get this idea of like how big is the graph, how dense is the graph, like how many nodes do we have in there, how convoluted are the edges, etc. And so I've seen multiple projects even after I worked on Art2Graffiti that were pursuing that goal, and it makes perfect sense.
How is it working in this field as a woman? Because I'm assuming most of your colleagues are male. Did you ever feel undermined or not taken seriously?
Yes and no. It's an interesting place to be in, and the field has definitely changed. Like, I've been around since 2011. Been a long time, 2010 actually, so 15 years. When I started out, I definitely was the only woman in the room, like whichever room I went to. Especially over the past 10 years, it feels like that has changed a lot. Suddenly there's more women around, and like we have these conversations in the corner of the room of like how nice it is that we're not the only ones. And yeah, over the years, I think I like to put it that way. I'm pretty sure that there were opportunities that I was passed on for because people didn't think that I was able to pursue them. And then also there were opportunities that were handed to me specifically to help me in this industry and to make sure that I stayed around. And I'm super grateful for that. And I think that even out like any disadvantage that I might have faced. But that doesn't change that those disadvantages are wrong. Like, there is a lot of discrimination is not the right word. That might be happening too, but what I see more of is the subtle underestimation that a lot of us face. Like, when we enter the room, there's a lot of trust that we don't get initially. Yeah, that's the feeling I had in my career quite often. Like, I enter the room and need to establish that I truly am a reverse engineer. I truly am able to solve problems in that field. And it's clear, like, to some degree everybody has to do that. Like, it's not only a woman's problem. It just feels like, especially if you're not part of the established group, that for you as this outsider it is harder than it should be.
So we're 2 pen testers in the team who are women, and then the rest are male. And as as far as I've been in my career, and it hasn't been long, it's only been like 3 years or something, I haven't felt that. I haven't felt specifically undermined or
given less opportunity. Well, sometimes sometimes I do feel like I'm giving less opportunity, but I do think that it's a matter of resources more than my related to my person. Obviously, there are projects that I really want to work on, but they're given to another guy, and it's obviously gonna be another guy because the percentage of women in my team or even in this industry is so low that if just like on the statistics view, it's more likely to go to another person that is a man just because there isn't that many women. If there was 50% women and 50% men, then I probably wouldn't feel that way. So I don't take it personally, or I don't take it as discrimination, but I do sometimes feel like, ah, man, I wish I was given this opportunity because I could definitely grow a lot more if I had worked on that project.
It's a very subtle type of problem. I think the industry has changed a lot, and like there's a lot more equality now, for sure. And also, like when I started, the harassment and discrimination wasn't my problem. I know that that happens. I don't want to discount other people's experiences, but for me personally, that was never the issue. I've never been actively discriminated.
But so to come back more to you and your achievements, I saw that you presented at some really big conferences such as DEF CON. How was your experience presenting there, and can you talk a bit about the project that you presented?
Yeah, wow. I, I presented at DEF CON in 2013, I think.
Oh, that was the year that you got into reversing.
Yeah, like the first time I went to DEF CON was that presentation. I presented the piece of malware that I analyzed for the competition. That was, oh my God, I was so scared. That was the first time I was speaking at a big conference. I might have died that day on stage. Was that I won that competition? The first prize for the winner was to go to Singapore to attend a conference there and do a lightning talk about that project. And I did that, and I was dying there too. Like I was so scared. But someone after that presentation came up to me and said I should submit this to DEF CON. And I was like, "You're crazy! Like that's not gonna work." And he was like, "No, sure. Like, please go try." And I submitted, and they accepted. And I was I was surprised. But then, yeah, I went to Las Vegas, and that was the presentation. And people seemed to like it. Like it was an interesting piece of malware.
What was the malware doing?
It was an espionage Trojan. I would take screenshots and try to take videos from the camera, and I think log keystrokes as well. It was able to steal files. It was able to place files on the disk. It had a lot of different functionality, and there was an interesting obfuscation method that was used in the Trojan. Yeah, it was very unique to that piece of malware. It was also written in C++, and it was multi-threaded. There was a lot for me to learn in there, and I outlined all those different subjects in the conference submission, and I think that's what caught their attention. That there was just a lot going on in that piece.
Do you have any tips for people who are gonna perform presentations? Because I'm booked to give a talk at B-Sides Limburg in Belgium, and I've never given a talk before, so I'm a bit nervous as well. Do you have any tips?
Ooh. I was scared of giving presentations for years. I'm not sure I'm the right person for tips, but I think what always helped me was practice. Like literally go through the slides prior and really think about the things that I could say on stage. And I think for the first, I don't know how many, I did a lot of presentations over the years, and it took me a long time to really be comfortable on the stage. And then at some point, somebody explained to me that, like, evolutionarily, humans are not supposed to be comfortable standing in front of a lot of other humans. And that made so much sense to me.
Well, that's how you got over your fear, just thinking like, yeah, humans are meant to do this, so it's okay if I'm scared.
Yeah, in a sense, like, there's much to do to get rid of that fear. You can't just push a button and turn it off, right? That's unfortunately not how it works. But like accepting that you are nervous and accepting that that fear is present I think that helps focusing on the task at hand.
Do you do any of those cliche techniques like picturing the audience naked?
No. No, I'd rather imagine that the audience isn't there.
So just as if you were presenting to your friend.
Yeah, to a friend or to an empty room or to yourself. Like, when I do presentation, it feels a lot like I'm trying to explain things to myself. It's a weird way to put it. Like, I'm not sure that that's helpful for others, but going through those slides and recounting the work that has been done and recounting the different steps and what failed and what succeeded, etc. It really is like you're the specialist in that subject. You did the work and now you're talking about it. And by trying to sort in your head of like how to explain that thing, that's what makes these presentations good, I think. And then it also feels good to talk about it.
One thing that kind of scares me is I'm going to get asked a question that's maybe too technical or a question that I won't be able to answer. And being in front of so many people on stage, I'm just kind of afraid to look incompetent. Did you ever have the feeling where someone asked you a question and you didn't know how to answer it?
Interestingly enough, no, but I had people explain things to me a lot when I was on stage. The thing is, like, you did that project, you're talking about that project, and nobody else has done that project. Other people might have worked on the subject, they might have worked adjacent to your project, but they're not the ones who did that specific piece. So if you think about it, the likelihood that somebody's going to come up and tell you that you're wrong is really, really, really low. Like, I've never had that experience. I had people ask pointed questions in the past, and I had it happen that I did not know the answer. And then it is perfectly okay to admit that that is not something that you have done, that is not something you've worked on, and that you'd be happy to have a conversation about it after, or however else that conversation will go. But it's not wrong to not know every answer.
Just one of the things that stresses me out the most is seeming unqualified and people thinking, why is she up there? She doesn't even know what she's talking about.
If that's what people want to think, then that is their problem.
Did you ever have to deal with imposter syndrome? Surely everyone in this field.
Oh, yeah. All the time. It's still there.
Do you still face imposter syndrome?
Yeah. I don't think that really goes anywhere. But I also like to think that I'm good enough at what I'm doing to be in the space that I'm in at the moment. And that helps with the worst of it. And that comes with experience. Like, if you have the job you're having, they have hired you for a reason. They believe you can do the thing. And so you too should believe you can do the thing. If you're at a conference giving a presentation, they have reviewed your material. They deem you worthy of presenting that material. And so should you.
In the event that you can't figure it out, how do you approach a task that was assigned to you and you can't do it?
So in reality, everything can be figured out, right? If you have an endless amount of time and an endless amount of help, you can get there. The theory. Then like in practice, if you can't get there in time, if you don't have enough help to find a solution, then you can't go there. Like in a professional environment, that's a case where I would start communicating early that the deadline can't be met, that the detail can't be met. And then it's up to leadership to either support you or send the case to somebody else. Failing in that sense is very unlikely. Like, if you're tasked with something that you really cannot master in the time and the detail that is required, then the person who gave you the task is at fault.
I think I'm still struggling a lot with imposter syndrome as well. And I thought I was getting better, but then there's like cases where I remember recently I was on a project and I think I overlooked something and like I just shattered. I was like, oh my God, I'm not meant to do this. This is ridiculous. How did I miss that?
Failure is human. Missing something is human. And that is not to shift responsibility, but if there was something that you didn't do well, it is a good opportunity to look at it and see what could you do better. Your circumstances led you there. And in reality, any form of failure is only really a problem if it's dealt with the wrong way.
What would be dealing with it with the right way?
Different steps. So first of all, I look at what the impact there was. Was there a timeline missed, or was there a customer expectations that was missed? And once you know the impact, I would go through that impact and work on it, like explain to the customer, maybe apologize, and maybe offer them additional insights. On the back end, I would look at why did I miss this? Like which circumstances led there? Are the circumstances possible to mitigate? Like the next time such a project comes up, going to be more time to look at those bugs? Can people be teamed up to look? Like it is not unusual that different engineers see different problems when they look at the same project. I have never worked in vulnerability research for a long time, but in reverse engineering, if you have two engineers look at the same binary, if they have an endless amount of time, they will both figure out everything. But under limited time circumstances, they will find different things in that binary. Just because our brains work in somewhat of a different manner, we have different skill levels. Even say if I have 10 years of experience and the other engineer has 3 years of experience, he might still see things that my brain just doesn't pick up. And in the bigger picture, that's a good thing, right? Because we have those teams of people who look at things. We'll find all the different problems that are in the space that we're looking at. As engineering, like any form of security, is a learning process, a lifelong learning process. I still look at binaries, and then there's things that I have never seen before. And I imagine that there is junior malware analysts out there, and like all they do from morning till night is look at binaries, and that they have seen a lot of things that I've never heard of before. I'm pretty sure that that's the case.
Yep. You also appeared at Forbes 30 Under 30, I saw. How did that happen?
That's a very good question. A Forbes journalist reached out to me, asked me whether I'm interested in that, and I said, yes, of course. That's how I got listed there.
Was it for specific work that you had done?
At the time I was publishing a lot, and I specifically had published work about nation-state malware, French nation-state malware, and I think that's what caught their attention, but I don't know actually how their selection process works or what put my name on the table.
What kind of work about nation-state malware did you do?
I think that was in 2014. Someone had reached out to me and told me they had an interesting piece of malware. I was like, ooh, do share. And so we're looking at that binary. There's strings in there that had us believe that that was a Trojan that was mentioned in documents that at the time Edward Snowden had leaked. Like there was a PowerPoint presentation from the Canadian intelligence community that mentioned malware that had originated in France that was named Babar. And so we're looking at that sample and we find strings in there that sound like this could be that malware. And it turns out indeed it was. And that brought me to the attention of other malware researchers who were looking for that same piece of malware and that same strain of malware. And it turns out there were 3 of us who actively looked into this, and we found different families that all originated in France. It's just super interesting at the time. Like I don't think that they were actively being used anymore. Like it was a blast from the past. But I was just super curious to look through the samples, and they all had names. There was a Babar, there was Casper, there was another one, I forgot the name of the third one. But it was kind of cute, like Casper the ghost and Bar the elephant.
I feel like malware names are always very creative. It's quite fun.
Yeah, indeed.
So this was published by Edward Snowden, so this was back, yeah, you said 2013, 2014?
Yeah, I never really looked at those leaks. Wasn't super interested, but friend of mine, like the same guy who shared those samples with me, he was like, "Hey, look at that! Look at that presentation." I looked at the PowerPoint, and I don't know if I could find it anymore. Or what I look now. That was a few slides only, really, and they described this malware that was named Babar and the different functions it performed.
I'm still struggling today to find the moral balance between, well, some of these tools are used for good, are used as a weapon, as a defense weapon, but then there's also this part of me where I'm like, well, it's a huge invasion of privacy.
Yeah, what had me a bit scared of that field is when things started becoming political. Like, interesting malware is one thing, but who it's been written by and to target who, that's a very prickly question on occasion. My opinions about that subject have definitely changed over the years as well. Like, back in 2014, that was really interesting. I was really excited to look at that. Today, there's so much going on in politics and with espionage that I'm honestly happy I'm not looking at those things anymore.
Did you ever at some point want to go into vulnerability research and exploit development, or did you never feel like that was the field that you wanted to explore?
That's a good question. I am not sure. I would say never. But it's like my time at Intel, I did spend some time looking for vulnerabilities, like doing code review. And well, they're hard to find, needless to say. And once you found a bug, it's hard to tell whether it's exploitable. Once you found a bug that you think is exploitable, you need to verify that. Once you verify that, you go into this, say, the slog that is develop a reliable exploit for that bug. And at the time when I was exploring that, I was just not excited about how hard. I mean, technical challenges, okay, but like all the try and error at the time was really not that interesting to me. Granted, I've probably done things wrong. There was a lot for me to learn there, and I didn't have the time to put in to really study up and get good at it. So I suppose that was the issue as well.
Or would you see yourself in the near future doing more vulnerability researching?
I'm not sure, honestly. Like, so I open a disassembler, I look at the binary, and I get excited. It's fun. It's like building a puzzle. I open a code base and start looking for vulnerabilities, and my toes fall asleep.
Well, you could also disassemble or reverse some services without having to look at a code base.
Yeah, sure. I've never done that or worked in that field, but that might be more interesting. And like vulnerability research is interesting for a lot of people. I just didn't find myself like it doesn't scratch the same itch in my brain as being a disassembler does.
I see. So for you, it's more like understanding how some pieces of software, mostly malware, I assume, work instead of looking through a bunch of code trying to find bugs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that's how we like if you look at the binary, somebody has written that binary, right? So like if you look long enough, you see some form of handwriting in there. And that's where it gets really peculiar. If you look at like their coding style, the mistakes they made, sometimes you see bugs. Sometimes you see things that you would have done better had you written that code. And I find it really entertaining.
But yeah, it's a interesting field to be in. A lot of things moving all the time, things changing all the time. So I feel like you don't really get bored or feel stuck in a sense of repetition. English lagging. But I think you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very lively field. There's new technologies coming up now. Like I don't know. Every month you hear something new that you could look into, take apart, and like possibly attack. But it keeps getting more and more exciting by the day almost.
So, what are your future projects that you have in mind right now?
Oh, that is a very good question. I don't have a project lineup just yet. I want to spend some time, like as we talked about disassembly frameworks, I want to set up a binary ninja installation and see what I can do with that tool. I also want to learn more about Ghidra. I've worked with Ghidra in the past, but I'm certainly not good at using that tool. I want to look at binaries that I've never seen before. I want to find the joy in reverse engineering again that I've lost a little bit over the last couple of years. I maybe want to work on a project that I can submit to a conference and go give talks in public again. I very much enjoy that. And then, yeah, just hang around and see what the industry has to give.
Yeah, you were saying that you want to get back into the industry again.
Yeah, for sure. I love about security is this community.
Yeah, at least all the people that I've met, they're so sweet, so nice, so helpful, and I've only had good experiences with people in this community. I never feel judged, I never feel undermined, and they're just really fun people to hang around, very smart people as well. So I really do enjoy this community a lot.
Yeah, I agree. It's wonderful.
Do you have any last words that you want to say? Any tips to people who might want to get into this field but know where to start?
Yeah, don't give up. Find a point to start and dig in there. If it was the wrong spot to start at, find a different one, start again. The beginning is difficult, but once you master that initial hurdle, there's this wonderland of interesting things to work on in front of you. And like, you might find this field that eventually becomes your hobby.
For people who are already working somewhere but not specifically in that field, people who have a 9 to 5 job, I feel like it's quite difficult to dedicate a lot of time to learning reverse engineering. I think that's the case for me. I struggle a lot to find a balance with learning, my social life, and my work life. And I feel like I should make a plan. Like, okay, on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm gonna spend 5 hours in the evening hacking, for example. But I'm struggling to keep that schedule.
Yeah, I think that's what gets us back to that hyperfocus. I imagine once you found that one problem that just won't let you sleep at night, that you really want to solve, that'll always get you back to your computer, then dedicating that time to it will be much easier than to sit yourself down twice a week to work on exercises. And that's just my impression. That's what did it for me. But like, I get it. Like, if life is busy. So, for instance, when I started looking into vulnerability research and exploitation, I had a very intense job. I had a boyfriend and like friends, and there were things going on in my life. So that might be the reason why I never really got into writing exploits for real. I don't have a good recipe to get out of that space and really dedicate yourself to a new problem. Except back when I was looking at reverse engineering binaries, I was just so hooked. Like, the first time I learned how to use either Pro and like navigate through the graph, I was mesmerized, and there was nothing that could get me away from the computer. So I think if one finds this passion project, that problem will solve itself.
Yeah, that is true. That's what I've gathered from speaking with other people is find a project that interests you and kind of give it your all. Find a project that has a reward. Someone I was talking to in one of my previous podcasts said that he learned reverse engineering because there was a reward at the end, which was free software. And so he had to learn how to reverse engineer so he could patch softwares and get free licenses.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, I got started with a competition. That was the same situation. Now I wonder where to find projects with a reward, but that's not always the case, right? Yeah, that'd be a good way to get started.
Well, thank you so much. I really this topic, and I think that a lot of people are going to enjoy listening to our conversation as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, thank you so much again, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Have a good evening. Evening, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Bye. Thank you.